Hey everyone, how's it going out there? How many of you are having challenges in your yard and you're just not sure what to do? Well, I know there's quite a few of you because you've been sending me suggestions on those problems and looking for answers and solutions. So we are going to tackle some of those solutions. This is part one of the What Would Michelle Do series, where I'm going to come in and treat your yard like it's my yard and hopefully give you some answers or suggestions that will help you. And hopefully they don't just help you, hopefully they help a whole bunch of people too. So let's get started. Before we get started, I just want to throw something out there because I try to keep it very real. This series is going to address hopefully some landscaping issues that people are having and offer some solutions. This is not a video series where I am doing personal design for people. Now, there might be some design involved in some of the solutions that I'm giving, and some of them might just be, this is my answer, this is what I would do. I have asked some people to submit me pictures, and some people have and some people haven't. So I'm going to do this to the best of my ability with the knowledge that I've been given. The other thing I want to talk about is I'm getting a lot of emails and phone calls and comments or questions down below where people are asking me to do a personal design for them. Now, I used to be a landscape designer and it was a professional job. And when I did professional landscaping design, I charged for that service. It wasn't a free service. And I did charge, a pretty decent amount of money for that. Now, the one thing that I want to preface on here is and I would love to, you guys, but I just can't. I can't start doing personal designs for people from YouTube because I would go down a rabbit trail that would keep me so busy doing so many designs. I would never have time to have a life or do these videos or run my garden center or be a grandma or volunteer at church or do my volunteer activities or have social time or whatever it is that I want to do. It's just not an avenue I want to explore or go down. So I'm really sorry, but that's the stance I have to take on. I'm not going to be doing design. So please don't ask me to because I'm going to have to say no. I just can't open that door. So that's all I want to say. I still really appreciate all of you and will, hopefully solve problems for you in this kind of a format, but that is kind of where I'm going to leave it. Okay, with all that aside, let's go have some fun. Let's solve some problems. Now, why am I doing this series? Well, because about 5 or 6 weeks ago, a viewer named Cindy Bunker 4918 asked me to. She sent me a comment below that said, would you consider videos of what would Michelle do for viewer submitted challenges? And, at first I pondered it and I thought about it and then I was like, you know what, let's do that because I think that maybe this would be a great way to offer real suggestions to real problems that people are having out there. And hopefully other people are having those problems and we can just hopefully kumbaya together and solve all the problems of gardening in the world. Well, I don't know if we'll do that, but we're going to tackle some of your challenges. So we are actually going to do Cindy Bunker first because it was her idea. So what is her challenge? All right. I have very narrow borders, maybe 2 feet wide with some spots 3 feet wide. Echinacea, Nepeta, Yarrow do well. Heliopsis return annually, but it's full of aphids. I'm ready to pull it out. Rebecca grows, but has black spots. I'm in full sun, heavy clay, springs, very wet, followed by dry summer. Oh my gosh, I have beds like that. I might not have any beds that are 2 or 3 feet wide, but I definitely have beds that get wet spring and dry summer. Oh, look, she's in zone 5B. Guess what? So am I. All right, and she lives in Wisconsin, so she's next door. So I'm sure I can offer a suggestion to help Cindy with her beds. Now, the first one of the questions that she asked was, the border seems too narrow to layer. Is it? Thank you. And then wonderful video series. So let's help Cindy first. And hopefully by helping Cindy, we help you too. Now, I don't have a picture or anything to go by with for Cindy's solution. So I'm going to just assume that this is hot sun. It's getting at least 8 hours plus. The beds are narrow. And so the first thing she asked me was, can I layer it? In a 2-foot bed, layering is going to be really hard to do. Now you can stagger back and forth and interweave to the next plant, but I think staggering a high with a low is going to be really tough to do because you're going to have to find a plant that's small, and most small plants are short. So I don't know if layering is going to be a good idea. Now, what I would do is color block, and I would break it up with some conifers. So I've got winter interest, and I would use that to break up the different areas. So if this is a longer, narrower bed, that is definitely how I would do it. Now, if this is a short bed, then I would probably color block it, and I would either have a center focal and then mirror out from there in opposite directions, or I would just use repeating patterns down the bed with different perennials. That's what I would do. But let's talk about some of the perennials that she could actually put together in this bed that will look really good. Now, I don't know if this is what Cindy has, the Septora leaf spot, but it's probably the most prevalent fungus that you get on black-eyed Susans, and it does start to turn your leaves black like this. Now, you can use a fungicide on it. For me, if I ever get it, it's usually caused by high humidity, your foliage being wet all the time and not good airflow through there. And if you had it and you left the plant up through the winter, then it can overwinter on seed heads, on the leaves, and then you'll get it again the next year. So if you do get it, your best bet is just to cut it all back, dispose of all of the foliage. Don't throw it in your compost pile, but just get rid of it, and then let new stuff come up the next year. And if you keep getting it because your conditions are just favorable for it, I would actually get rid of the black-eyed Susans that you have and go with this next variety, the American Gold Rush, instead. Did anyone notice my hair changed? Well, I had to go back to work yesterday, so I'm actually on the next day, new outfit, new hair, and we're just going to keep going. So you might see me go back and forth between clothes and hairstyles, but that's okay. You're still going to get all the information that you need. Now, as I was saying, I would use the Rebecca American Gold Rush because it has been bred to be resistant to that Septora leaf spot. It gets about 26 inches high by 40 to 48 inches wide, grows in zone 4 through 9. I really like it. I planted some in my garden last year in the cottage garden that we did, so I have high hopes for this. I have dealt with the leaf spot on mine, and mostly it's because sometimes Rebecca, especially in the clay, they can really get thick because they are happy in the clay and they grow well in the conditions that we're talking about. So I would switch to this Rebecca if you want to keep it in the bed. If this was my bed, I would definitely put a grass in it. I like the Korean feather reed grass because it grows in part shade or full sun. It can handle the wet conditions in the spring and the dry conditions in the summer, and it will grow in clay. Now, when you read about it, it talks about how it wants good drainage, but I have this growing in full clay, and it's growing and it's doing great. I like the plumes that it gets at the end of the summer, usually at the end of August or the beginning of September. Now, the actual grass itself starts growing usually once the ground warms up, and then it keeps growing all summer long, and then it gets these plumes that rise above the grass. So the grass itself might be 2 or 3 feet, and then the plumes come out maybe another 12 to 18 inches, depending on how much sun it's getting. The plumes themselves are these really super feathery champagne pink color, and then as they age going into fall and it gets cooler outside, they get a little more like creamy colored. I really like to use these to dry. We use them in arrangements at the floral store. I use them in my winter pots. They look great in my landscaping, and it gives you something different that looks good all the time besides flowers, because those can come and go, and I need something in this long skinny bed that's going to look good all the time. So I would definitely recommend this one because out of all the grasses, this is the one that's going to do the best in those conditions. Also, this one has sterile seeds, it's a clump former, and it's not going to go all over the place and make babies. So, gotta love it. Korean feather reed grass. This one I would definitely put in. All right, the next perennial that I would choose would be a solidago. Now, this isn't ragweed, you guys. This isn't the stuff that everybody's allergic to that blows pollen all over the place. This is goldenrod, and we actually use this as a floral flower a lot at the floral store in the garden center. Now, the one that I would choose would be the little lemon because this one only gets 8 to 10 inches tall, maybe 12 to 15 inches wide. So if you're looking for a later summer bloomer and you're looking for the one that is deer resistant and you want to try and layer just a little bit, maybe in that area that's maybe 3 feet, maybe you can tuck some of these in. Now, I don't think that this is a plant that you plant just one of. I think you plant quite a few of them in like a bigger drift. So maybe you'd plant, 5 or 7 of them together and make color blocks down the bed and have it repeat itself. But this is really compact and it's really perfect for the front of the border. If you want to cut the flowers and dry them, you can do that. Grows in zone 5 through 9, adds a beautiful yellow color, especially when you're looking for something later in the season. Geranium rosaine will bloom all summer long, and this is one that I would also color block in some of the narrower areas of the bed and just create big masses of it to kind of mound up. It is really super pretty, and it can get little running tendrils on it that maybe will spill over out of the bed. You can always cut those off, but it also can intermingle with maybe the plants you put on either side of it, and that's where I would use like either a long spiky flower or I would use like a Rebecca. So I really like this one. It starts blooming in June and it self-clings. So that means it pushes all of its flowers off and keeps producing flowers and you don't have to deadhead it. Now, when it first starts to bloom in June, the very first flush of flowers is going to be probably the most prolific. And then it kind of is a little bit more sparse as you progress through the summer. Now, on the tag, it'll tell you that it blooms through August. When I've grown these, they have grown until the frost took them out. These guys are vigorous little guys. They're really super happy in clay. They can handle the wet soil of the spring and they can handle the dryness of that clay in summer. I actually had to pull mine out in the place that I put them because they got bigger than the tag said and they were like taking over my whole bed. So if you're going to plant these in those conditions, just remember they can get bigger than the tag. Now I have found with these that you can get a little bit of scorching on them if they're in hot blazing sun from sun up to sundown. They want a little bit of protection from that hot afternoon sun. So maybe if you can plant a grass next to them where it can maybe pull some shade over on top of them to give them some relief, that might help. Otherwise, I would recommend this one. It is gorgeous. I like it. It grows in zone 5 through 8. Usually gets 15 to 20 inches tall, about 18 inches wide. But again, I've seen them get way bigger than that. But this one is gorgeous. Look at those flowers. They're like this pretty blue purple. Oh, Siberian iris is like the biggest drama queen ever. The flowers on this thing are this dark violet blue. They are so beautiful. I love this thing. And I know some of you are going, hey, that's a water plant. Well, it is. You can grow it in your pond. I've grown it in my pond. I've grown it in a bog. I've grown it in a pond. I've grown it in regular soil, clay soil, sandy soil. I've grown it in part shade, full shade. I've grown it in part sun, full sun. I have grown this thing everywhere. It is so versatile. I love it. It is certainly worth a try to plant it because I think, one, they're inexpensive. Two, you can get more of them very quickly. And three, it's beautiful. Zone 3 through 9, 42 inches high, 18 inches wide. Now, this is blooming more towards the beginning of June. And when the flowers are done, you should cut them off and then they're going to get these black seed pods on them. Now, what I do is I go through and I cut out about 60 to 75% of those seed pods. Now, you can take those seed pods, dry them, and then propagate some more iris. But what I'm doing is I want the energy to focus on creating just that nice, pretty strappy foliage. I don't want it to put energy towards seed production because then what happens is I start to have a little bit of decline in my flower production the next year. And I want them to be just as beautiful year after year after year. So I would definitely try Siberian iris because they grow pretty much anywhere you put them. Liatris, spiked gay feather, blazing star, they're all the same flower. It is your original prairie flower. So guess what? Super adaptable. Now, if I were to plant these in a long, skinny bed, I would actually use the kobolds because they're the dwarf cultivar. I don't want the really tall ones. One, I'd probably have to stake them. Two, I don't have a neighbor in a 2-foot bed that's going to help hold them up. So they're going to either fall over or, again, I have to stake them. And I don't want to do that because I don't want all those stakes in a skinny little bed. I would definitely use the dwarf cultivar because it only gets 18 to 24 inches tall and wide. These guys have a really, really wide range of where they'll grow. Crazy great cold tolerance all the way up to zone 2. And guess what, you guys down there in zone 9, you can plant these too. These guys are deer resistant. And if you want to cut the flowers off for flower arranging, they are great for that. So try Liatris in a long, skinny bed. They can handle all the conditions of wet and dry. I know it's a daylily, but daylilies check the box if you're looking for something that can handle the wet and the dry. Now, if I were going to do a daylily in this bed, I would definitely do a repeat bloomer like a purple d'oro, which is like a knockoff of a Stella d'oro. Well, actually, it was bred from the Stella d'oro, and now it's a purple d'oro. 3 through 9 is the zone that it's going to grow in, and this is a shorter daylily, 60 to 20 inches high and 24 inches wide. Now, the nice thing about a little skinny bed is if these guys start looking ratty, you can always cut them all the way to the ground and they'll produce new foliage and look good for the rest of the season, but you might sacrifice your reblooming of this. But you know what? Daylilies are pretty easy to grow, and they, again, it's another one of those flowers that will grow anywhere. I would definitely try to put some shrubs in this bed, but again, you're going to have to use smaller shrubs. If I was going to do an evergreen, I would do a boxwood because they're pretty versatile. They grow in sun or shade, and they can handle a lot of different conditions. Now, she's going to have a pretty small one. So she's either going to use a baby gem or is it Wee Willie? Yeah, Wee Willie, which is the two smallest ones that I know about. And she'll have to put them in the areas that are like 3 feet wide. They'll take a little bit to get big, and she could start with a really small one first. Now, if she wants to try other shrubs, I would try a sweet spire. And if you can get your hands on a fizzy mizzy, this is the 2024 Shrub of the Year for proven winners. They grow in zone 5 through 9, and they get 3x3. Now, these guys are deer resistant, and they smell fantastic. And if I guess how they described it in their description on the internet was, it's like putting the exclamation point in your bed. The little flower spikes on it like go straight up and down instead of like curving over like the little Henry does. Aren't those cute? Now, if you can't get your hands on a fizzy mizzy, try a little Henry. They grow in the same zone. They grow the same size. They have the same great smell. And sweet spires bloom more towards the end of spring, beginning of summer. And they get great red fall foliage on them. Yes, very, very nice. Now, remember, she already has yarrow and nepeta and echinacea, and that those were doing really well for her. And I would continue to use those. I would color block though. And color blocking doesn't mean that you have to have all one color. You can do different colors. What I mean by color blocking is I'm going to plant a larger grouping of one thing to have impact. I'm going to use evergreens or a statue or a bird bath or something to break it up, a boulder, whatever. And then I'm going to repeat patterns down the way as I go. Now, if you have an opportunity to put a fence or something like that behind your little skinny bed, that gives you an opportunity to vertical grow, and then you could grow something up the fence or whatever it is that you put behind it to do a vertical growth. You could also put an obelisk in the bed to give you a vertical to grow vines or something on, and that would work as well. The next one that we are going to tackle is from Brad and Megan. They sent me a picture, and I'll show you that in just a second. But I remember that I would encounter this one all the time when I was a landscaper. People would want me to hide this for them in some way because it was a wellhead, and whether it was just the wellhead itself or it had a big concrete thing around it, whatever it was plunked down in the middle of their yard, and they wanted to hide it and make it more pretty. All right, this is from Brad and Megan, and this is a view looking out her kitchen window. So there's a concrete wall behind the park bench that really has me stumped. Currently, I'm blocking it with a bench. I'm thinking about adding pots of boxwoods on either side. I am on a budget. All right, so let's talk about what we could do here. But before we do that, let's talk about what you can't do here, because this is a well, and there are certain things that you just can't do around a well. The first thing you're going to do when you're planting around a well is you are going to go get your paint, and you're going to go get your tape measure, and you're going to measure out 4 feet all the way around that well, and nothing is going to be planted in that 4-foot area. You need to start at least 4 feet away from the well. 1, you need access, and 2, roots are a well's worst enemy. They can destroy the well's casing that protects your well. So 4 feet away. And then the other thing is, the closer you are to the center of that well, the more shallow the roots need to be. So if you're thinking about planting a tree, you got to start at least 20 feet away. And that isn't for water hungry trees like willows or maples or poplars or elms. Then you'd want to be like 50 feet away. The other thing is no pesticides or fertilizers within 100 feet of the well, because guess what? That leaches into your soil, and you don't want that in your water either, right? Okay. Also, every city has different codes, so make sure you check yours before doing any landscaping around your well. I am going to keep this very super simple. And the easiest thing, obviously, that you could do to make a concrete casing that goes around your well look better, paint it. I mean, it's easy, it's cheap, doesn't make it go away, but maybe you could paint it and make it blend in. What else could you do? Okay, so instead of having the concrete thing in the middle of your yard, you could get a fake rock cover and put that over the top of it. I think those can be just as expensive, and I don't know that it looks any better, but it is a solution. I suppose you could build over the top of it, but then if you need access to it, you'd have to pull the boards off of this deck. So I don't know, this would work, but we want something budget friendly and a little bit easier to do. But you could do this, it would look nice. Now you could build a wishing well around it. In a pinch, you could go get these bricks, which aren't very expensive, from a box store like a Home Depot or a Lowe's, and build it around the cistern. And then if you're handy, you could build the top. Now, if you aren't handy and you don't know how to build the top, then just skip the top and build the bricks around the cistern to make it look like a well cover that's nicer looking than just the concrete. You can do this with mortar. You can do this with cut wall stone. You can do this with boulders. You could do this with the bricks from the box store. There's so many different ways that you could put some kind of faux covering on the outside to make it look better. And there are a gazillion YouTube videos to show you how to do it. And I think that if you were to buy the inexpensive brick, it's budget friendly. And if you don't want to do that, then just paint it. The next thing that I would do would be to find 3 different pots that are 3 different shapes and sizes, but are like a set. And you can usually find these at Walmart. You can find them at a box store or garden center. And you can find pots within your budget, whether you're using plastic, concrete, polystone, ceramic, whatever it is, find the ones that you like and the color that you like, and then fill them up with good potting soil. Then you're going to plant annuals in them, and you can do that with either little 6-packs that you buy from the garden center, or again from Walmart or wherever you're going to get them, or you could do it from seeds. And there's lots of annuals that you can grow easily and readily from seed. If you want to have some vertical interest in here, you could make an obelisk, and I've seen lots of videos to make these as well. You just need some lumber to do it, some screws, and you could probably make this. You could also buy one of these. I've seen these on Amazon at a reasonable price, and I would grow an annual vine on this, like a Thumbergia, which is like the Black-Eyed Susan vine, which grows really fast. It's an annual vine. Or you could do the hyacinth bean and grow that up this, and that would look really super pretty. And both of them grow really super fast. They're shallow rooted. You're going to pull them out every year, but it would give you some really nice flower power on there. And remember, start at least 4 feet away, but that would look nice too. If you want to plant something in the ground because you want it to come back every year, I would use the tall stone crop or the sedum because 1, it's shallow rooted. 2, it doesn't have to be fertilized. 3, it's drought tolerant. And 4, it's pretty pest resistant, so I don't have to use pesticides, fertilizers, and it's going to come back every single year. It's going to give me a bloomer later in the year, more towards fall, but the little plants themselves, as they're growing, they always look really good. On my next slide, I've given you a whole list of suggestions of different ones that you could plant. Isn't that pretty once you put the flowers in the pots? Now you could do different color schemes or whatever it is that you like. I have a tendency to lean towards purples and pinks because that's what I like, but you could certainly do yellows, oranges, reds, whatever color suits your mood. And that's what's nice about annuals is you can change those colors out every single year. Last but not least, I'm going to plant something into the ground because I want different heights and different levels. 1, it's going to look better. And 2, it really does take your eye away from the cistern itself. Now, if you wanted to snuggle a bench in here, you could, and then pull the bed out a little bit further. Now, the one that I would plant in the ground, again, I'm looking for things that are drought tolerant, that don't need to be fertilized, and don't have a lot of bug pressure or problems. I would choose the Surefire Rose begonias, and I would choose the Surefire White begonias. And the reason I would use those, they're both by proven winners, is because they'll grow in sun or shade. And I grew them last year. I never fertilized them once, and I didn't have to supplement water them, and I didn't have any bug problems with them. They were beautiful. They were so awesome. They would look absolutely fabulous in the bed, and you're not out a lot of money, but you've created this beautiful piece in your yard instead of an eyesore. So that is what I would do if this was my yard and I was on a budget to beautify around the well. All right, you guys, I hope that was helpful. I hope it helped some of you solve some problems out there or gave you some ideas for some different things to do. Look at all of these that I have to go through. So I will pick 2 or 3 more and we will go through those. I'm not going to do these all in a row. I'm going to sporadically interject these into the everyday videos that we're doing, and we will keep doing these as long as I can solve problems. We are getting ready to go kind of into gardening season, so I've got to start going with some of the other things that we're doing for gardening as well. Also, don't forget, Saturday is our first question and answer session. Well, we're going to answer questions from the last month. I will be doing those on the second Saturday of every month, and I will be posting those at noon. So watch for that one this Saturday coming up. And don't forget, on Mondays, starting at the end of March, beginning of April, we will start our vegetable and herb series. So that will be a lot of fun as well. So thank you so much for watching. I hope this helps somebody out there. I'm Michelle. Have a great day. Keep on gardening, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye, everybody.